Good day to you all. This is Fran here, doing the intro for this neighbourhood special. I'm currently down the beach. I'm topless because it's hot, and my hair is getting greyer. I hope you're all well. This episode is a Babs area in Belgium. This is my area, Wessex or like Dorset and Hampshire really. It was fun to research all of the local artists, and I discovered a few that I did not know were from my area. A fun music fact for you guys: Coldplay filmed the video for Yellow nearby on Studland Beach. We spent such a long time discussing our neighbourhoods, we've broken it into two parts, so today will be part one, my neighbourhood. Enjoy.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, what are we calling this podcast?
Was it over underrated?
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Överschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
And welcome to Over Underrated, a new episode. And me and Babs are here to do another podcast about music that we love and music that we may not love as much. And how are you, Babs, today?
I am decent despite a fight breaking out between police on horseback and some people in my local woods, which was the most exciting thing that happened to me today. Lockdown 2 continues here in Belgium, and I am just about surviving and looking forward to the Easter break that's coming up. And I know that you've been on holiday already, Fran. How is holiday in lockdown?
I am loving it, so tanned, enjoying the British summertime. Coming down, it's been slow. I think I can technically have a picnic, but I have not had a picnic, but I've been walking around and had a couple of takeaway coffees, so check me out, guys.
Living the wildlife.
I think I've been vaccinated for 2 weeks now, so I can have extra protection.
You feel like a superhero.
I do. And and I was saying to Babs before we press record, I believe there's a superhero Netflix TV show being filmed locally. And locally, guys, is what we're going to be talking about this podcast.
Segue.
Thank you very much. We are doing my neighbourhood. And when I say my neighbourhood, I mean 2 counties, Dorset and Hampshire, versus Babs' neighbourhood, which is
an entire country of Belgium.
She technically has an advantage here, guys, but it's fun. It's fine. And I have chosen 10 artists from my area. She has chosen 10 artists from her area. We're going to discuss them and see who is living in the best region.
Indeed. This is a special episode. So this is mostly bands that we love, although it's limited to a certain region. I do think that I have a slight advantage over Fran because I have a whole country, even though I only live in the one city of Brussels. But let's see how we go.
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Överschätzt.
I will start with Greg Lake.
Indeed, of Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
You know him. I literally had no idea if you knew who he would be.
I didn't know him until I clicked and I was like, oh, the Lake of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. That makes sense. And actually, it made sense in the context of this song. But yeah, go for it.
So I'm not going to lie, guys. I had no idea that he was from my area until a week ago.
Me neither. Oh, researching for this, was that when you found out?
Yeah. So obviously, I don't live in a city. Dorset is kind of rural. Hampshire's a bit more, we've got a few more bigger towns, but I kind of kept it like in a 50-mile radius of myself to make it slightly more harder. And Greg Lake is from Wimborne, which is a small town just outside Bournemouth. And yeah, it's probably got 10,000 people live there. And it turns out that Greg Lake from Emerson, Lake and Palmer was from Wimborne, and he joined King Crimson. Do you know that band?
Mm-hmm, I do.
And he then did an album with them before jumping ship and joining the supergroup of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And then he went solo and he did a couple of big hitters. But this is the song that I knew because obviously if you live in the UK and it's Christmas, you're going to hear a song every day.
I lived in the UK for 13 years of my life. I have been there at Christmas. I have been besieged by the Christmas music, but I had never heard this song before.
Crazy. I mean, I did work in a record store, and retail theme lends itself to the now Christmas. But yeah, this was like a top 2 single, I think, for him.
And has a lot of plays as well. Like it seems to be the biggest song of his from Spotify. So I guess it's difficult for you to be objective about this song because you've heard it lots since you were a kid.
I've heard it loads, but I don't hate it. It's not annoying pop. It's kind of got a bit more to it. And I think the main riff is traditional, but I don't think
if you say
that.
so. I have no idea.
I think I got a feeling it's like some sort of like old school classical riff. But yeah. Are you a fan of I Believe in Father Christmas?
Yes, I surprisingly was. I was surprised that you didn't include an Emerson, Lake and Palmer song or a King Crimson song, but I guess you were keeping it pure, keeping it local.
Mm-hmm.
He's, I know him from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I really rediscovered them actually quite recently because of the song Lucky Man, which is it's a brilliant song, and I'd kind of forgotten about it, and I've been listening to it kind of on repeat since then and watching YouTube reaction videos to people watching it as well. That's how deep I got into that song. So when it started and I heard the acoustic guitars, I was like, ooh, a bit worried, but actually like he's a great guitar player, lovely harmonies, like with the LP. And I really like how there are other sounds coming through to make it more than your average Christmas song. There's a harpsichord at the beginning. There's sort of traditional orchestral percussion, synths. It's a Christmas song, but weird, which is what you would expect from someone like him. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I added it to 2 of my playlists. I added it to Bar Humbug, which is my sort of alternative Christmas playlist, and to a playlist that I created and have become obsessed with recently called Good and Weird 60s and 70s music. So yeah, absolute winner from me.
Because I knew that you hated Christmas songs, so I thought, this is not going to be a good start.
I thought you were trolling me, to be honest. At the beginning, I was like, he's opened with a fucking Christmas song. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, I thought this is like one of the standard Christmas songs you always hear.
No,
so.
I had not heard it before.
Maybe that's why you liked it, because you haven't heard it
$1,000 million times. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt.
What's your second pick, Fran?
My second pick, and probably the most well-known of my picks, is the Mercury Prize winner, PJ Harvey.
Twice over.
From Bridport in Dorset. I still think she still lives there.
Oh, really?
So I think she recorded one of her albums in a church nearby. Like she keeps it real, old PJ.
Have you seen her around?
I've never seen her live. Oh, not around. I've never seen her hanging out. I think she probably goes to like Dorchester, probably the nearest town. But she's probably the coolest person from Dorset I know. She hangs out with like Nick Cave and Josh Homme. You can't do better than that.
Yeah.
And this album to me is her best album. I guess it's probably her most rocky album, I guess. Is it really?
No.
Really?
No. Dry and Rid of Me, her most rocky album, surely. Like this has a bit more of so I was I don't know if you want to finish talking about the song, but I was surprised of all her songs, this is the one you picked. But yeah, carry on.
I think like this was the first song that I remember seeing on MTV. Yes, MTV. That's how old it was. So I know the PJ Harvey with her video of her in a white suit. Yeah, and like she was an instant rock star. She was like, down the camera, this is love. And I thought, oh, who is this? And I was absolutely shocked to find out that she was from a small town 15 miles away from my house.
15 miles, wow, okay.
So yeah, and then I found out that people have met her. She's like a lovely lady. She loves Dorset. So I thought, I have to include her, surely.
Of course you do. Like I would have been surprised if you didn't. Yeah, I love PJ Harvey. I only got into her in the last few years. I feel like she was always someone who I felt like I should like because she's a rock chick, and seemed very like no nonsense and very authentic, and I think the songs I first heard of hers never quite clicked with me. So this might have been one of them, or actually Good Fortune from the same album, which I now do like, but I can imagine hearing that when I was younger and sort of being like, oh, this is a bit repetitive. Then I think at some point I heard Rid of Me and I was like, aha, okay, this is the PJ Harvey that I like. So yeah, I really like her first 2 albums a lot. And in fact, I have just done a podcast talking about Dry, her debut album, in great detail. It was really I don't think I've ever analyzed an album in that detail before because it's very symbolic and and stuff, and we really went into the lyrics, and I read academic articles. I'd signed up to JSTOR to read academic articles about it because I was just like, I don't understand what this is. I need to go and read it. But I do quite like Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea as well. It feels very of its time. She looks very of its time. You know, she's got like the straightened hair and sort of, I don't know, scoop neck tops and stuff like that. But this is, I would say, a more middling song of hers. So it is one that I like, but it isn't one of my favorites. I think there's a great sort of driving rhythm guitar, and you've got the lead guitar being a bit more wistful, which makes sense when you sort of look at the lyrics, because it's basically about lust and desire, as so many of her songs. You know, she says, I can't believe that life's so complex when I just want to sit here and watch you undress. You're the only story that I never told. You're my dirty little secret, want to keep you so. So I feel like what she's playing definitely matches the mood, but maybe because the chorus is so repetitive, I feel that there are better songs even on this album.
I feel that this is the only song I'd hear on a radio station. I feel like this is probably her pop song, if you can call it a pop song. And I remember when that album came out, this was the one I'd see her perform the most. That's probably why I thought of it. Like when I thought PJ Harvey, I thought, okay, what's the best song? First thing I can think of for PJ Harvey, and I thought, okay, Mrs. Love. Yeah, she's good at picking a duet.
Yes, absolutely.
She's literally the coolest people in history of rock over the past 30 years she's sung with.
Yeah.
I think I saw her like singing with like Nick Cave before I even saw her perform by herself. But
yeah, very good. Yeah, no, I've got I think I would have rioted if you hadn't put PJ Harvey on it.
For a while, it's like she was like to go to
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt.
Okay, so now this is a band who I love, and I predict you are going to hate. But pick number 3 is from Southampton, just down the road. Delays, not the Delays, just Delays. And they were an indie pop band who've been together since the early noughties, and then released their debut, I believe, in 2003, and had a big hit with Long Time Coming. A long time coming, and that's when I discovered them. And then when I found out about local, and I had a few music fans in Southampton let me know that they always do a Christmas show every year in a different venue in Southampton, and I have been to maybe 7 of those.
Wow!
Where they literally have all the lights, people dress up. It's like everyone's just happy and jumping around to the Delays. And then Delays, the second album I thought was amazing, but for some reason it didn't do as well as the debut. Like a lot of these mid-noughties indie bands, their career kind of sparkled and slowly fizzled out. But I personally thought they still created decent music. And I've chosen a B-side. So I've chosen Panic Attacks, which is on I believe, is it Love Visible EP? Yeah, Love Made Visible EP. And it's the first song where the keyboard player, Aaron, sings, uses his brother Greg.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about his anxiety. And it's I think it's a glorious pop song inspired by New Order, sort of keys to it. And then Greg comes in for the chorus, and I love the harmonies. And I love how it ends up with the drums getting louder and louder and louder and builds up. They play it live all the time. I have no idea how I did not make an album. Yeah, so Panic Attacks by Delays. What do you think? So
I've written a lot of similar notes to what you've done. So I know Delays. My mum bought Faded Seaside Glamour on CD. But Long Time Coming was too overplayed. I don't really like that. But I really like Stay Where You Are from that album. That's a very weird pop. So I don't mind a bit of weird pop. So when this started, I thought, oh dear, because it felt like the poppier side of New Order. That's what I wrote, not as much the edgy. But as the song progressed, I found myself liking it more because it builds and it drives. And as you say, the interplay between the two voices is fantastic. And yeah, the keyboard player, he has such a lush voice. It's a nice kind of contrast with the sort of gruffer voice of the other singer. And I really like how it speeds up at the end and then it fades out. But when it fades out in the same way that the song starts. So it feels like a loop, which I guess like a panic attack, that doesn't end. So I thought it was, I was won over by the end. At the beginning, I thought, oh no, I knew Delays and I was like, oh yeah, they can be a bit too poppy for my tastes. And when it started, I thought like, oh gosh, no, this is going to be another one. But no, I liked it.
They're one of those frustrating bands that like have never found the right producer, because live they sound so much different to their CD version. Like they're especially the first album, it's very like 60s pop. There's no distortion, and it's all quite beautiful high notes and everything. And live they are a lot more rockier. Greg has his voice is lower, and I think they definitely sound better live. About sad, do you know about the Delays now? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Greg's got terminal cancer, sadly. Mm-hmm. So will we ever see them again? They were working on the 5th album back in 2012, and I heard a few songs from them when they're playing live, and I don't know if they're ever going to bring that album out.
9 years in the making. That's
yeah. I mean, I saw them do one of those Christmas shows, and they played 2 new songs. Mm-hmm. Wow, they sound brilliant. That was like 2013, maybe 2012, mm-hmm. And then obviously they went quiet for 2 or 3 years, and then he found out obviously Greg's condition, mm-hmm. And it's the band that don't exist anymore. And but then recently on Aaron's social media, he works at Pirate Studios now in the prop department, and he played a Delays new demo, and he's dancing around with all his mates. So does that mean that they may have done an album during lockdown finally, which would be great. Honestly, I don't know how well Greg is for singing, or I don't know at all. But it'd be great.
Lots of love to Greg, because obviously it's tough. But and I hope that if they have songs that are recorded, that they'll come out soon, because from what you say, it sounds good, right?
Yeah, and I just think they're a really great indie pop band, and I feel sad that people just write them off as like a one-hit wonder kind of thing, really. Mm-hmm. I just don't think they've ever really given much of a chance. There's a lot of bands in that era who sound quite similar.
Like The Feeling is who I think of a little bit.
I think that's slightly cooler.
Yeah, but it's still kind of...
Like, the first album, I guess. Yeah, you can see them on Anton Deck's live TV program. It was that kind of,
and it's the voice as well. Like it is I say blush. I'm going with lush.
He does sing high, doesn't he?
Yeah. Which
underrated, sous-évalué, überschätzt.
We're now going to keep it even more local again, and we're going back to Wimborne, but not as well known. So I used to work in a cinema in Bournemouth, and then I was introduced to 3 new workmates who were in a band called Brothers in Sound, and they were an actual signed band. And then I was like, hey, did you know that he was actually in a band? They played at Reading Festival.
Oh, wow.
I was like, really? And ooh. They're kind of like remember Bentley Rhythm Ace? Rhythm Ace, that sort of era. So that's sort of like electronic with a few vocals. They're cool. I think they only made 1 album. Obviously, they ended up working in the cinema, so they went back to basics. And then I think Ed went back to university to learn about music 4 or 5 years ago. He then appeared on BBC Radio 6. And I was like, what?
Wow.
Go Ed. It's like out of nowhere. And like he's been interviewed by Lauren Laverne, and he had a new album out. And then I noticed that he released a new album literally last week.
Yes. Okay. So when is this from? I was going to ask, because it's from this year.
Yeah. It came out last week. So I thought, hey, I will big up Ed. And this album's very minimalistic. Mm-hmm. And this song is my favorite because it's very much like early 80s OMD, just simple keyboard riffs, and just a nice sort of like melody over the top. So what did you think?
Yeah, I wrote never heard of him, because I had heard of most of the people on this list, but he was one that I hadn't. So that's quite a fun story. So you used to actually work with him at the cinema.
Yeah,
that's really funny.
Ed Dowie, we used to discuss Talk, but I asked him about this, and he has no memory of that whatsoever. But there we go.
Yeah, I really like this. I put strong synth opening, and I actually put Depeche Mode Erasure as my go-to. Just the keyboards by themselves, not the whole sound. When his voice came in, it was such a contrast to the strong synth sound. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, but I did get used to it. Like I thought it was quite floaty, and then as the song goes on, He's sort of harmonizing with himself, and I quite like it. And he has and actually, I feel like a lot of the artists on this list, you can really hear that accent, like the Southern English accent coming through. A lot of British bands, they sound a bit American, don't they? But a lot of people in here really sound quite English, and he was one of them. I really enjoyed the lyrics of the song. Don't take any of the advice proffered to you when it comes with a knife. I renounce the light and hide while an orchestra begins to surmise. I'm like, this is fucking poetry. It ended quite abruptly, and it didn't make as much of an impact on me as some of the other songs. So strong opening, but yeah, I wasn't such a fan of this one. Sorry, Ed. But I would, because of the lyrics especially, I think I would go and listen to more of his music.
Yeah, I think that I had to include him, and I thought, I know that you're a synth fan, so I thought I would go down that route. I mean, the other songs on the album do sound quite different, so it'd be interesting, to find out what you think of his other stuff, really.
Yeah, underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt.
So moving on to, I think, probably the biggest artist after PJ.
Yeah, who I hadn't heard of, actually.
It's a shock because, so we have Birdie from Lymington. This is near the New Forest. And I knew that she was like 16 or 17, and she became massive for covering Bon Iver's Skinny Love, which I believe, Babs, went to #1 in Belgium.
Oh, did it? Sure. When was it? I've only lived here since 2013. Was it? It
was 2016. No, I think it was like 2011. Yeah, and also her album went to #1 in Belgium. So,
oh wow,
the Belgians love her. But also, I think it turns out that she's also part Belgian as well.
Yes, she has. I saw she has a Dutch-sounding surname. So I did wonder if that was the connection there.
Because, yeah, I think her dad's I think half Belgian, so right, yeah. So just thinking it there,
yeah.
And I had to try and choose, and thought she does a lot of covers. She's like if you want like a slow down piano ballad, she's the artist they seem to go to for a lot of films as well, and TV shows seem to have her covering other people's songs. But I went for one of her own songs, and I went for is it Keeping Your Heart from Beautiful Lies?
Oh, no, I've got Keeping Your Head Up.
Keeping Your Head Up, yep. My internet's slow.
Right, so...
Keeping Your Head Up. And I thought it's her most confident sounding because it's got a full band. It's not just her singing beautifully with a piano. And I kind of thought it was her being Florence and the Machine.
Okay, so when the song came on, I thought, right, this really sounds like modern pop. But I didn't think of it in a good way. I thought of it as in like, oh, it's aping the sound of the late noughties. And then I saw it was 2016. So I was like, okay, I'm being unfair. This is again like a song of its time. It sounded incredibly familiar, but I hadn't heard it before. However, I do listen to Belgian radio sometimes. So if she is big in Belgium and there is that Belgian connection, it's not out of this world that I might have heard this song before on the radio and just not really clicked with it. I found it difficult to listen to it with some objectivity because I just felt like, oh, this is a song where if someone was like, what did pop sound like in the late 10s? This would be it. It is quite epic, and I think it would be a perfect song for like a sports montage or a film. But even having said that, I listened to it again, and by the end of the second listen, I was singing along to it. So it is very catchy. I think if I was, with friends in a club or something, I could see myself singing and dancing along to it and enjoying it. But yeah, it was a weird one because I felt like I heard it before, but I hadn't. Very strange.
But that's the best songwriting, isn't it? When you can make a song instantly, like, oh, hang on, this is one I know.
It's an earworm, definitely.
Yeah. I think Wings is probably one of our other biggest songs I know. But this was the most up tempo, and I kind of like that she now feels like a confident woman, and she can now do these epic big pop songs.
She was a huge 20 when this was released.
I think she's got her third album or fourth albums out this year. So
Fran, these young'uns and their talent, and here we are.
4 albums before you're 25. Then moving on to another big hitter, I think, from Winchester.
Oh, is that local again? Yeah, no idea with UK geography. No idea. Yeah.
This is the furthest away, but we're talking 40-minute drive.
Okay.
If I drive to London, this is the first town or city technically I drive by. And Winchester used to be the capital of Wessex, used to be kind of England, so it's got a lot of history behind Winchester.
Winchester sounds lovely. Every time I read about Winchester, it just sounds like this lovely market town that I would not want to live in because it sounds a bit too stuck in the past, but I would love to visit for a day. I
think it was voted the best place to live in England recently.
Oh, recently? Okay, interesting. Epsom, where I grew up, as a kid, what also had that honor in, I think, the mid noughties, but then it became too expensive and dropped off of the list.
Well, yeah, I mean, Winchester now, because of that, will now double the house prices because I think like it's one of those places where it's the commuters perfect, and it's like an hour train drive. So you know, and it's very airy fairy. It's got the round table there, which doesn't make sense because it's pretty much fiction, but you can enjoy yourself Winchester if you like.
I can pretend I'm Lancelot. That sounds good. Yeah.
So people go and visit the round table in the same way.
I would be one of those people for sure.
In the same way people visit Baker Street as if it's a real the Sherlock Holmes house. Mm-hmm. So Frank Turner was in a post-hardcore band called Million Dead, did one album. He then left. I believe he listened to Nebraska, and it changed it, and it sort of changed how he wanted to approach music. So he then got out his acoustic guitar, and then he started to do that sort of like anti-folk scene, which became popular like 2008. And then since then, he's kind of like moved on from the anti-folk. He's now become he basically does rock songs now, doesn't he? Really, I
don't know him very well. Yeah.
I thought you'd be on board Frank Turner. Yeah. So yeah, he was he's quite an outspoken guy. He's got a lot of opinions. People love his lyrics, and then slowly he became a ramshackle singer-songwriter, and now he's got like a full band. He did like a Wembley arena gig with like Screamers Pip and Billy Bragg supported him.
Oh wow! I didn't know that. They supported him. Wow.
Yeah. Like he's one of those artists that people like just became obsessed with.
Yes.
And so like you wouldn't think he could sell at Wembley Arena, but he's the sort of person that all his fans went to that one gig. You know, like you either love Frank Turner or you don't. Like he's one of those sort of artists. Like everyone's really passionate about Frank Turner. So much so that there's a band that I like called Arkells from Canada, and they supported Frank Turner. And then when I saw Arkells do their first tour headlining, it was mainly Frank Turner fans because they're friends of Frank Turner, so therefore we can like them too. You know, that's how loyal the fan base of Frank Turner is. And like he always does a lot of benefit gigs for local venues. In Southampton and Winchester and Portsmouth, because he's always wanting to support the local industry. So I think he's a really great guy. I'm not the biggest fan of Frank Turner. I don't own any of his albums, but I have interviewed him, and he's done some features with me. He's very, very friendly. He's very open. And when I was thinking of what songs, I thought, okay, this is probably his most instant track. Mm-hmm. Some people who are big Frank Turner fans will not like the song because it's a bit too poppy. Mm-hmm. And I believe he was also the first person to perform at the 2012 Olympic ceremony.
Oh, right. Okay, then I totally erased him from my mind because I did watch that ceremony. So yeah, I have basically discounted Frank Turner because I thought he was a bit too acoustic-y. I think, and let me check with her before this goes out, I think Kate, our previous podcast guest, is a huge fan. Mm-hmm. I feel like everything I know about Frank Turner has been her posting on Facebook, potentially. But whenever I did hear, I was like, well, this is clearly not for me. When this song started, I thought, oh, hang on, maybe I've misjudged him. Like, it's very heartfelt, and I really liked his voice. And again, it sounds very authentic. But this one was almost the opposite. It's like, as it went on, I didn't really like it. It went a bit country, a bit Americana, and it's not really my thing. I hadn't realized that he was a singer in Million Dead, and I quite like Million Dead. So after that, I was like, all right, let me go and listen to it. And so I went to listen to Breaking the Back, where he goes he really has an incredible voice. Like he goes through the whole range of emotions because he's like screaming in that one as well. And I was like, yeah, that's why I was saying, damn you, Bruce Springsteen, because I mean, unlike you, Fran, I do quite like a political singer. You know, singers don't have to be political or like very open for me to like them. But yeah, it's nice, especially when you feel like you can identify with what people are talking about. But yeah, I much prefer shouty, like difficult to understand Frank Turner than this one.
He does now try and mix 3 Frank Turners. So on an album, he will have the the acoustic protest song. He will then have like the rocky pop song, and he'll then have a bit more like grunting, shouty Frank Turner. So I think he's trying to please his rainbow of fans. His last album,
or just blending genres, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I mean, his last album was really popular. I mean, he even did dance routines in the music video.
Wow.
So why not? Who
needs TikTok when you've got Frank Turner's videos? But yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
I think maybe check out a Spotify playlist and see if anything else.
Underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt.
Okay, so Band of Skulls were a band that I was introduced by some music friends in Southampton, and they're like a band that everyone knew were on the rise. So everyone kept saying, come and see them play like to 100 people, because next year they'll be playing to arenas. And yeah, it's just like 3 guys who are doing like garage rock, but they've got male-female vocals, which is a nice blend. I mean, you don't really get that with like the White Stripes and the Black Keys, so I was kind of like that. They had some decent riffs. They looked great, and yeah, and I heard them all live before I heard the album. Again, they're a better live band than you hear on the album. I think I don't know why that is. So I went for their debut album with a track called Fires, just because I love the vocals and I love how it sort of like eases down, and the riff is like, and I think the riff is fantastic, but I think it could be, if this album had a better producer or better production, I think it could have had that riff could have been glorious. But early days, and they've made maybe 4 albums since then. I think the drummer's left, and they're still going, and they still support local talent. When Greg from For Delays had a charity gig, they were straight on the bill to support Greg. So yeah, great guys.
That sounds lovely, but unfortunately, I think this is our first point of conflict, I have to say. So we talked about Band of Skulls in our Brighton episode, and yeah, you told me that I would probably like them and I should go off and listen to them. And I did a bit more, and I added one of their other songs, Friends, to my playlist, which is from the Twilight soundtrack. With this song, when it started, I was like, again, promising start. You've got guitar, you've got the drums that build. Then when it slowed down, I thought, no, what happened? Like, I felt like all the momentum was lost. I really felt the lack of a bass, which is actually, as much as I am a bass player and I love a bass, a lot of people complain about that in 2 pieces like White Stripes and other people. Normally that doesn't bother me. Here it did bother me. And normally I love a male-female harmony, but it sounded I wrote syrupy. I didn't really like it, unfortunately. It didn't really click with me. I think the beginning was so promising, and I tried. I listened to it again to see if I would change, but I love the beginning so much that the rest of the song, I feel like it didn't come back. And the difference between the beginning and then the verses was too big for me. I'm sorry, Fran.
Do you think that if they re-recorded it, I mean, Rocky, you'd enjoy it? Because it's a great riff for down, down, down sort of riff is pretty. I mean, again, is it because I saw them do this live?
Yeah, a
lot more before I heard it on the album.
And yeah, so of the 10, because I know with mine, of the 10 artists that you've got here, how many have you seen live?
Let's have a quick look. I have not seen Greg. I've not seen PJ. I've seen Delays. I've not seen Birdie. I've seen Frank. I've seen Art Brew. I've seen Band of Skulls. I've not seen Klaxons, Rig Limit, and I've seen Betka. So yeah, okay. So what's that? 6 out of 10.
Okay, interesting. Because yeah, I think very often that can change your view on a band, and I'm sure actually that live it would be very good if they are only a 2 or a 3 piece, because it would be quite atmospheric. But yeah, I really feel I have a bit of a block on Band of Skulls because, as we know, I've got some very random songs of theirs saved on my Spotify playlist that I don't really know how I came across. It must have been on a playlist or somewhere, and just it doesn't quite click with me. But
this is their lightest song.
Mm-hmm.
I think you like the heavier stuff, maybe.
But not always. I mean, I guess just like with, you don't like something automatically because it's melodic. I also don't like something automatically because it's heavy. I have listened to some of their heavier stuff, but there's better heavier stuff out there. I found than Band of Skulls. So sorry, guys.
No,
you have a lot of fans. You're fine.
They haven't made a killer album yet. Like I tend to like 5 or 6 songs per album. It's just enough for seeing them live because obviously they play the best songs of each album, but yeah, they haven't made their mega piece if they're ever going to make that mega piece, their masterpiece, or maybe they can call it mega piece. They haven't made their masterpiece yet.
Over underrated, sous-évalué, überschätzt.
Art Brut.
Yes.
With lead singer Eddie Argos, not his real name. For anyone out there who's not heard of Argos, Google it, and then you'll find out why that's not his real name. So Art Brut came from an ashes of many bands that Eddie and his friends had been in. Like most of the bands on my list, they had to move to London to get noticed because there's no A&R man by the beach, sadly.
Only you.
And then, Eddie found some like-minded friends. He brought back his mate to play guitar. They then became Art Brut, and he thought, hey, why should I even try and sing when I can just chat? And they had a very distinct, like when I first heard Art Brut, I fucking hated him because, it takes a while to get used to a guy talking over a track. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking Jarvis, we're talking a guy just talking.
Absolutely.
And we found that we formed a band, became a breakthrough single. And then by the second album, they kind of got a few more like decent, catchy tracks, like direct hit. And they then sort of petered out. And then luckily for me, 2 years ago, I think this is, they came back with a new album. And I have Wham Bang Pow.
Let's rock out.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic rock track about loving a party. What do you think?
Loved it so much. I think we've talked about Art Brut briefly, that I was meant to see them supporting the Subways before Corona hit.
Both of us.
Yeah, both of us, exactly. And I think, I talked about how my friend Mark, who designed the logo for the podcast, he'd always tried to get me into them, but it had never really clicked. This is the gateway into them, absolutely. Like I like We Formed a Band and a few other stuff, but this was fantastic. It is under 3 minutes. There is so much going on. You've got angular guitars on the verses. You've got a sort of heavier driving chorus. The bass and vocals and the breakdown later on are fantastic as well. And the lyrics just made me feel pre-Corona nostalgia so much because he's saying, I'm just looking for a party. I don't care what music they play. Beer bottle lids used as ashtrays. We'll make some enemies in the kitchen. And then later on, he even says, like, your girlfriends, we're going to steal them, leave footprints on the ceiling. And then there's like what a feeling harmony after they say that. I want to wake up smelling like smoke under a pile of strangers' coats. Yes, take me there. I want to wake up smelling like smoke under a pile of strangers' coats. And that is not a sentence I would have said recently at all. So yeah, really good choice. I think this was easily my favorite on the list.
I mean, yeah, he's a brilliant guy. He's our local Jarvis, for the lyrics alone. Like he's got away with words, and he speaks to my
directly.
Generation. Yeah. And surprisingly, people sort of like dismissed him. I was like, oh, it's the guy who talks, but the actual band, brilliant fucking riffs, and like you said, that was got guitars everywhere. It's got a little twiddly bits as well underneath it, and live they're sensational. And and hopefully, has it been rescheduled? That Subways.
I haven't heard anything, but I have heard Subways promoting their new album, so I don't know.
So hopefully in the UK at least.
Yeah.
I get to see.
That's okay because we've got a lot of good Belgian bands as we're going to come to later.
But the one time I saw Art Brut, it was actually a homecoming gig in Poole, and he played he played literally a mile from where I am now, and it was a sweaty, beautiful mess with him getting his top off and singing in the crowd. Sadly, he's been on a lot of podcasts recently, and he has been slagging off Paul a little bit. But he now lives in Berlin. You know how it is.
Yeah, I mean Berlin is very cool, right? So fair enough.
So hopefully I'll get to see
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt.
So Klaxons, guys, new rave. Remember 2005 or 2006?
Oh,
was it?
Yeah, baby.
And Jamie Reynolds, the bassist and singer, is from Christchurch, which is around here.
Not New Zealand.
He was also friends with Eddie Argos, also friends with Matt Tong from Block Party.
Really?
Yeah, we have randomly.
Is Matt Tong from Block Party from?
He used to serve.
And you didn't put Block Party on here.
Because I had to be sure, right? So Jamie and Eddie sing. I think to be count, you got to be the singer.
Oh, but Matt Tong is he's one of my favourite drummers. I didn't.
But I don't think a drummer can count. Well, I mean, obviously,
don't write.
And he's no longer in the band either. So
true.
So Matt used to work in Pizza Hut, and I've been served by Matt Tong back in the day.
Just.
I mean, other mentions I could have had Alex James from Blur.
Yes,
he's only the bassist. I thought you've got to be the singer to count, and obviously Richard Oakes is the guitar player in Suede from Paul as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Who was at the Art Brut gig.
Oh, okay, lovely.
So Paul Massive and us. Yeah. So for some bizarre reason, in the mid-noughties, we had loads of indie darlings from the same indie clubs. Anyway, yes.
And just to briefly, you talked about New Rave in 2005. I think I must have shared it with you as well, that Vice article about New Rave, which came out recently, the oral history, which again was very nostalgic.
So so Klaxons were kind of the leading lights of that scene.
Yeah.
Mixing 90s rave with modern indie. It's fine. I like a couple of Klaxons singles for the first album. I thought it was kind of a scene which was pushed a bit too hard, but had nothing much behind it. Yeah. Then Klaxons were massive for 1 year, and then I heard that they made an album. They took it to Polydor. Polydor said no, thank you, and had to redo it because it's too experimental. And then it changed producers, and then made
Surfing the Void.
Yeah, and then this was their big comeback single, Echoes. I think Zane Lowe called it the best single in the world today. It's
in that tone.
And it was a different step. This isn't new wave. This is just pure indie, isn't it? Basically, with a nice piano riff. It was very in your face. It's got mega productions, had a mega video. I like it, but there's something I don't know. It just feels a bit heartless. It feels like these are some guys who've been asked to make a hit, and so I enjoy it, but there's something about it that feels a bit artificial. Like this isn't their actual music. Like they've been asked to record a hit. So what do you think? So
I'm a huge Klaxons fan of their first album because I was at university when it came out, and for me, I 100% associate New Rave with that time. I've seen them live in 2008 in Rock Werchter. That was the year after their debut album came out. I'm a huge fan of their debut album. When Surfing the Void came out, which is, by the way, the best album cover of all time in history, it's a cat who's an astronaut. Just Google it. You're welcome. I was really disappointed. I was really, really, really disappointed. So when I saw that you put Echoes, I was like, really? From their second album? Really, Fran, you've chosen this? I'm very surprised. But I have to say, on re-listening, I actually enjoyed it. I think this song was overplayed because there was a bit of a gap, 3 years between the first and the second album. And I think as a big fan, I had been waiting for that second album, waiting. And then this song came out. I didn't like it. And then it was overplayed. Now I actually think, you were saying that it doesn't sound new rave. It sounds like something else. To me, actually, it does sound fairly Klaxons, I thought there were a lot of similarities with the stuff from the first album. And I started listening to Surfing the Void, the album, and I was like, gosh, no, this is good. So thank you, Fran, for picking this. At the beginning, I was like, oh, of all the songs, why did Fran go for this one? But it's really made me reconsider that second album. I,
for some reason, thought that the second album had terrible reviews because it didn't do well. I mean, they got dropped. But looking back, it didn't have bad reviews either. So I honestly can't remember the second album apart from this one song. So why was it a flop?
I think, like you say, the scene was very short. short-lived, the new rave scene. I, as a Klaxons fan waiting for this, I felt like this didn't sound like them. I felt like they'd shifted their sound in another direction. I didn't like it, and maybe, you know, I wasn't the only one. And if their fan base felt like that, then their fan base didn't accompany them. They were doing this kind of music, you know, turn of the decade when things are moving on a little bit. Maybe if it had come out a bit sooner, like 2008, 2009, it would have been bigger.
I mean, it'd be interesting to know what the scrapped album would have sounded like.
Yeah, definitely.
The third album I've never heard. Is that any good?
I have not heard the third album because I was so disappointed. But yeah, I was just looking on Spotify and I was like, okay, one thing at a time. I will start with Surfing the Void, which you know, I have it on CD, and like I said, it is the best album cover of all time. But I've always been like, oh, is it one that I should sell because, you know, I don't listen to it? Well, now I'm gonna go and listen to it. I've put it to one side by my CD player to go and listen to it. So thank you, Fran.
I mean, I've not seen the Klaxons live.
They were very good.
But 2 years ago, I was sat opposite him in a tube. So is that?
Oh, what a claim to fame!
Pretty close there, guys.
They were really good. They were so that, you know, I saw them at a festival, and I feel like they were fairly early on in the day because I guess it was Belgium, so probably they weren't as big in Belgium as they were in the UK. And I think reading that Vice article, it sounds like they were on drugs a lot of the time. And I have to say, I don't remember much about the gig apart from it being good, but I feel like they were probably a bit high, but quite professional. And they played all the songs that I wanted them to play, and I was happy with that. And Love Fox in that Vice article was really fucking critical of NME and really critical of like wanker journalists, basically. And it made me love reading more.
Sous-évalué. Überschätzt.
So, moving on to my final local act, and it's an act hopefully you guys can discover. So, you said on Belgium that this band exists, yeah? This band exists in Belgium?
So it is on Spotify. Yeah. All your picks were on my Spotify. It was the other way around this time, wasn't it? That some of my picks went on your Spotify, and we had to go to Amazon. But yeah, this is definitely the most mysterious band that you picked, Fran.
I assume you guys at home, being music fans, will have mates who are in bands, and then you have to go along and see them play an awkward open mic and clap loads, but secretly they're terrible. And then you sort of like see all of the other bands at night that are also pretty terrible, like lots of, you know, awful Bob Dylan covers, or, you know, like crappy skinny jean indie bands who just sound like a terrible version of Oasis. And then once upon a time, I then came across this band called Betica. And the fact that they were good and were local meant that when I saw them, it was like watching Pulp. Like, compared to all of the other acts who beforehand, to see them being this great at writing songs, like for about a year, I saw them maybe 10 times in a year every time.
Oh, wow.
And they always had, Betica was 8 members as a full band. Like, it had like, you know, 3 guitar players, a melodica player, like a clarinet player, you know, that
the polyphonic spree of
it was, yeah. And depending on the size of the venue they're playing, they'd have a smaller version of Betica.
Yes, I read about the greater Betica and the lesser Betica or something like that. Yeah.
You'd have like the acoustic version just the 4 of them. So it's always interesting because you never know what Betica you're going to see. I think Dave was the main guy behind it. And he just wrote these like great pop songs. The track I've chosen is By Default, which is a song about having an STD and finding love. And these are like high school teachers in local schools. And he would dance around. He loved it. And then for one Christmas gig, I did a cover of Arcade Fire Wake Up and mixed it into Last Christmas by Wham, and it segues beautifully, guys. And yeah, I adore them. They had loads of songs that never went anywhere. This is 2008, I think, this album.
2006.
2000. There you go. And I bought it off them myself for a tenner. So when I found out it was on Spotify, I was like, they're going on the show. And yeah, you can't be more local than an unsigned act from Bournemouth. And yeah, it'd be interesting to know what you think. Could you tell straight away that they're unsigned?
No, I couldn't. It reminded me a bit of Ed Dowie, actually, because I felt like, it's another sort of posh posh man with great lyrics, and I did enjoy that. Yeah, what a mysterious band, Fran. I was saying before we recorded, I found like a couple of BBC articles about them, like a Dorset article, and it basically said it opened with, there's 7 of them in the band, they share their name with a singer from Cameroon, and when we asked them to submit a band picture, they sent us a monkey photo. Welcome to the weird and wonderful world of Betica. And I was like, who are these guys? There is an album of theirs on Spotify, but it's mixed in, as Spotify often does. If 2 artists have the same name, it's mixed in with the singer from Cameroon, which, yeah, they acknowledge. And I had to listen to write out the lyrics because I couldn't find the lyrics. Anyway, actually, I did find a link that said that it had the lyrics and then it didn't open. So I was like, okay, fine. But yeah, it was so original. The lyrics are incredible. Here, the male and female harmonies really work, I thought. And yeah, I literally kind of sat down to write them out. So, wiping the sick from her lips, she grins through the bile. I get an unexpected close-up of her eyeball. I should get my eyes off her tits. Mentally booking a blood test and genital check for next week. She talks me through her piercings and tattoos. I catalogue my mental scars. Yeah, just wow. Just each one of those lines on its own, like, really makes you stand out. And again, like Eddie Argos, he really enunciates, like you can really hear what he's saying. So for the lyrics, I absolutely loved it. For the music, the more it progressed, the tweeter it got, I wrote, and I was like, ooh, I don't like this. But I think because I really wanted to write out my favorite lyrics, I then listened to it over and over again, and by the end I was like, yeah, no, I think I do like this now, because just from repeated listenings and the lyrics. So yeah, what an intriguing band.
To have a band locally who can produce a great single and know that like only 100 people will ever hear this was, I thought, brilliant. And I found it frustrating because by the time they did this album, they were in their 30s, teachers. Like they knew they were never going to tour for UK. And I thought, oh, how frustrating you can have this talent and no one's ever going to hear it. So the fact that Spotify...
Fran, they are on Bandcamp. So
really?
In 2013, there is a Betica EP, and I was like, is this the same Betica? Could it be the Cameroon singer? But it definitely is, number one, because it sounds like them. And number two, because in the BBC article, they describe themselves as death pop, which is another one of the categories on Bandcamp that they put on, as well as Bossa Township Surf Skiffle. So there we go. And, you know, very often on Bandcamp, you put regions, and I thought like, oh, have they put Bournemouth but no, they've put United Kingdom. They've kept that very general. But yeah, it sounds a little bit different to this. But yeah, if you want to go and listen to new Betica, I think it's literally betica.bandcamp.com.
They had a song about listening to the Charlatans at the indie disco, which I remember being a banger, and I've not heard it for 15 years, and I'd so love to hear that version if they ever recorded it.
If it might be on there, I don't know. I don't know. Check it out.
So there you go. That completes Dorset and Hampshire. I hope you guys discover some fantastic local artists. Let us know. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm just generally jealous of Fran that he lives by the sea at the moment. Fran's on holiday at the moment, and he put a picture of him reading by the beach, and I almost exploded in jealousy, I have to say, Fran.
Over underrated. Sous-évalué. Überschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over underrated.
And welcome back, and thank you so much for listening to my Neighbourhood section. I'm getting hot, so I might have to have a Calippo. I believe that I didn't mention some of the song titles, so I will quickly give you my rundown of my playlist. So we had I Believe in Father Christmas by Greg Lake, This Is Love by PJ Harvey, Panic Attacks by Delays, Number 8 Wire by Ed Dowry, Keeping Your Head Up by Birdie, Get Better by Frank Turner, Wham Bang Pow, Art Brute, Fires, Band of Skulls, Echoes by the Claxons, and By Default by the exceptional Betica. Thank you for listening. We have social media. I mean, who doesn't? We are OU Pod on Twitter and Over Underrated Music Pod on Instagram. Give us a like, subscribe to this podcast, tell, a friend, and let us know your favourite Neighbourhood songs. And enjoy next week's episode with Babs. Goodbye.